Let's say that one day you're flying in somewhat remote country in an airplane that does not have a GPS. And the airport you want to go to, say Independence, Kansas, is miles away from any of you are, but it does have an NDB nearby. Well, you're in luck because your airplane has an ADF and you took this course and you know how to use it. Well, in the case of Independence, the NDB is just 5 miles south of the airport. So all you have to do is get yourself to the NDB and fly north. Or to be more precise, if you look at this approach chart, you can see that you actually need to fly a bearing of about 356 degrees from the station for about 5 miles. And lo and behold, you'll find the airport. Well, first things first, let's figure out how to get to the NDB. I'll tune in the frequency, which is 335 on the ADF. Next, let's listen to the station identifier. Now, that's a coincidence. The identifier is ID. Let's listen. I hear bit-dit, da-did-dit. It sounds like ribbit, Doug did it. Well, the ADF indicator does not have an off flag on it, so I'll leave the ADF very low in my headset to verify that I'm receiving the signal while I'm navigating with it. Now, the needle on the indicator points to the station, and I can see now that it's off my left wing. Now, if I want to know what magnetic bearing to fly to the station, all I have to do is rotate the ADF card until my current heading is at the top of the card. Now, it looks like the bearing to the station is going to be 030. So I'll turn to a heading of 030. Now I've got the nose of the aircraft pointed right to the station. Now, in order to keep reading the bearing to the station, I'll have to rotate the new heading on my ADF card to the top of the instrument every time I change my airplane heading. Now, we're pointed right to the station, and we will eventually get there if we keep the nose of the airplane pointed to the station. But today we have a crosswind from about 300 degrees, and it's about 20 knots, and that's off to our left. So if I don't correct for the wind, it'll blow me to the east, and I'll wind up flying a curved path to the station. Well, that'll work if I keep turning the nose of the aircraft to point it to the station, but it won't be my most direct way to get there. And besides that, it just won't be elegant. So what I'll do is establish about a 10-degree wind correction angle to the left. So I'll turn left to a heading of 020. Now, at the same time, I'll rotate the card on the ADF so that it shows my new heading of 020 at the top of the indicator. Now, if I've gotten the wind correction angle just right, I won't have to make any more corrections. But you know how life goes. The odds are I haven't gotten it just quite right, so let's assume I start drifting a little to the east. Now, in that case, the needle will start pointing to the left of the bearing I want to fly. Now, I see that the bearing to the station, which was 030, is now 028. So that means I've drifted to the east by a couple of degrees in just a few minutes. So I'll turn another 4 degrees or so to the left, and we'll see what happens. Okay, so my new heading now is 016. And once again, I'll rotate the ADF card so that my new heading of 016 is at the top of the instrument. Now, when you're tracking to an NDB, it helps to think of turning towards the needle. In other words, if the needle is to the left of the course you want to fly, you need to turn to the left. Now, that did the trick, and now I'm back on the bearing of 030 degrees to the station. Now, if I keep holding this heading, I'll wind up drifting to the west. So now I'll turn back by about half of my earlier correction. So I'll turn back 2 degrees, and we'll see how that works out. Okay, now that gives me a new heading of 018, and I'll put that at the top of the ADF card, and we'll see how that works out. Hey, it looks pretty good. We're still on that bearing of 030 degrees to the station. Now, all I have to do from here on out is make little corrections like I did before, and you know what? We're going to wind up flying a pretty straight path to the station. Okay, there's station passage. Well, now we'll turn left, and intercept that 356 degree bearing from the station and follow it to the airport. Now, I'll continue this left turn to a heading of about 325 degrees, and that way I'll intercept that 356 bearing from the station at about a 30-degree angle. And of course, I'll rotate my ADF card to match my new heading. Now, if I had wanted to intercept the 356 bearing to the station, I'd know that I was on that bearing when the head of the needle pointed to 356 degrees. But in this case, I want to fly the 356 bearing from the station. I'll know I'm on that when the tail of the needle points to 356 degrees. Now, when that happens, I'll take a heading that I think will have me track along that 356 degree bearing from the station. Now, in this case, I'll use about a 10-degree wind correction angle, and I'll take up a heading of 346 degrees, and I'll rotate the card to show the new heading. Now the tail of the needle is on about 352 degrees, well, which means I have drifted to the west of the course I want to fly. That means I have too much wind correction angle. Well, I'm about 4 degrees off course, so I'll turn to the right about 8 degrees to stop the drift and correct back to the course. Okay, now that gives me a new heading of 354 degrees, and of course I'll rotate the ADF card to match my new heading. Now, when you're correcting while flying away from the station, it helps to think of pulling the tail of the needle with you. In this case, the tail was to the left of the bearing I wanted to fly, so we turn to the right to pull it back to the right. Now I'm back on that 356 degree bearing from the station, so I'll turn left half of my correction. So I'll turn back left 4 degrees to a new heading of 352 degrees. And I'll rotate the ADF card to reflect the new heading. Now, I hope this new heading will have me correct properly for the wind and track along the course. Hey, there's the airport. You know what? This stuff actually works. Well, now you have new and important ADF tracking skills, and they're skills you're going to use when you shoot an ADF approach.